And we are. So welcome. And the purpose of this is to just give everyone an overview of the mastermind meeting format and allow you guys to ask questions if you have any. So I will start out by briefly, let me get my notes in front of me here. Okay. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically go over the groups and how we're formatting those, how we're putting those together, and then I'm going to give you an overview of the process we want you to work through with your group, and then we're going to get into the meeting format. So all the way throughout this, I want to make sure that I'm answering any questions anybody has. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to pipe up and ask it in the chat box. So first of all, just a general overview. We have had over 60 people sign up for the plus level of the course, the mastermind, the plus level mastermind tier of the course. So I've been in touch with all of the pro owners in the top tier mastermind group, and I've gotten back. I've been in communication with every single one. There are still a lot of people that we have not heard from that bought the plus level of the course. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get a response from everybody to make sure that they get into the group that's right for them. And the way we've organized the group is we've pretty much sorted everybody by time zone first, and then time of the day you want to meet. So morning, afternoon, or evening. And so I know a few groups have gelled really well and already have their time set, and we are still working to get a few other folks engaged. So the first thing that I would like to ask you guys to do is, if you have not received a group assignment, and all the pro level members have received information from me, but if you are a plus level member and you have not received a group assignment, the first thing I want you to do is email hello@whitneyenglish.com so that we can get you into a group. We need to know what time zone you're in, and then if you would prefer to meet at morning, evening, or night, and we will assign you to a group and get you in touch with that group. So the second thing, if you haven't done this yet, is once we hear from you that you want to be in a mastermind group, we will send you an invite to an app called Slack. Now, those of you that are here in the webinar with us, how many of you guys have already signed up for Slack and are on it? Can I get a show of hands? Lindsay, Karina's, okay, awesome. So a lot of people are on the Slack thing. Perfect. So Jamie has no audio, which is, yeah, that is strange. Maybe try a reboot. So we have a special Slack account, special Slack team set up that we're going to be using Mastermind. And the reason we're using Slack is because it's so convenient, you guys. Like, there's an app for your desktop, there's an app for your phone. And in this day and age, when so many people are building virtual teams, it's going to be a huge benefit to you to understand this app and how to use it as you grow your businesses. So I've only been using Slack for a few months, and it has absolutely changed how I'm able to interact with my entire team. So it's super awesome. So if just make sure you're on there. The next thing that you might do, and you can do it in the background while we're talking through the rest of this webinar, is hop on there, and And if you're on there, you should have been added to a private group. So download the app for your desktop and hop onto Slack, download the Slack app for your desktop, and hop over there and check out your private group. You should be in one private group. So check that out. And I am in every private group right now, so that me to interact with you guys and see what you're talking about during the week. You can use Slack to say, hey group, I'm having a problem, I'm struggling with this issue, chat about things there. And it's a more intimate way for me to hop over there and interact with you guys that are on the plus level. So some of the first things that we wanted you guys to do as a group were, first of all, decide on a meeting time. This is kind of like The Apprentice. I'm not a big TV watcher, but it's kind of like on Trump. We have these little group assignments. So we wanted you as a group to pick a meeting time. And that's why we grouped you guys by time zone and time of the day you wanted to meet in order to make that easiest on you all. So select a meeting time. And then once your group has selected a meeting time, in your private group on Slack, tag either Mary or myself and let us know what your meeting time is. We need that information because I think we've only had 40 people respond and tell us what time they wanted to meet. So as we may have to add people to your group. Hopefully we'll start to get that, start to hear from those people soon, or start to get that figured out. And we fully understand that some people just don't want to participate in the group. So if that's you, no problem. We're not offended. But once you, in fact, I'm going to turn off my Slack right now because Lisa just pinged me. Hi, Lisa. Thanks for pinging me. So I just need to not distract me. So the second thing that we thought would kind of be a fun assignment for you guys to do would be to pick a group name. So pick a meeting time and then pick a group name. Get to know yourself, find a common thread, and or a common goal that you share, and see if you can, or something that you want to learn together, and see if you can come up with a fun group name. And then the last thing that we wanted you guys to do is select from your group a facilitator. We have a lot of leaders in this group, and Module 2 released this week, and of course it's all about kind of understanding what your activity strengths are, entrepreneur, what role you should be playing, and so I would really challenge you guys to, if you've seen someone in your group already that seems to have good leadership skills, or seems to be connecting with people really well, maybe nominate them as a facilitator. And if no one is being nominated, maybe step up to do that. We do have, Mary is going to facilitate a group. My friend Kristen Becker, who's in the course, is going to facilitate a group. And we can step in and work with your team to help you find a facilitator. The role of the facilitator is not actually to mentor or to coach anyone through the group. The role of the facilitator is this. It's really three things. It's to remind the group of meeting times, which is going to be easier with Slack. If you download the Slack app, it's really easy for the facilitator to reach out to everybody there and notify everyone. The second role of the facilitator is to be a timekeeper in the meeting. So I'll get into the meeting format that we're going to use in a little bit, but it's very structured. And one thing that I'm really going to emphasize to you guys is really rely on the structure. This is something that I've tested in multiple environments. We've never done it online, but I've done it live in all different in person in all different kinds of formats, and it really works. And so part of that is staying on time, and I'll get to that in a second. And then the third role of the facilitator is to keep everyone on track. So there are different things that you do during the structure and during the format of the meeting at different times. And every now and then, especially all of us are women, we want to get really chatty and talkative and off track. And the role of the facilitator is to step in and go, oh, we're off track. and you can do it with humor and graciousness and kindness, but it's important to do that. So in your groups, if you have someone who's sort of already rising to that leadership occasion, that work with them to nominate them as facilitator, or as we would call this in apprentice terms, project manager, but nobody's going to get fired, right? So I see some questions. I want to make sure I'm getting everybody. Lisa. Okay, Meggie, you're signed up. Okay, we'll get you into a group. Kristen, I got your email about the first group meeting, and I'll be working with you. So I need to answer those two. Okay, well, no, we'll just talk about it right now. So one thing that's really important is being at, just showing that to your meetings. And so that's why one of the first things that we are asking you guys to do is to select a meeting time, and then I would ask you to commit to being at that meeting. And I know things change with childcare and people get sick, and you know, your long lost lover calls and wants to go to coffee or whatever. I'm making a joke, but things pop up, and I would really encourage you. It's only 3 meetings that we're asking you to use for your mastermind, and so really commit to being there for your people. If you can't, okay, so we put you into these groups. If you cannot figure out scheduling with your group, feel free to ping Mary or I on Slack, and as the groups report back to us with their meeting dates and meeting times, we can find another group for you. We may just have to change times in for you. But there are a dozen groups, and we may have more as they all kind of start to gel and come together. So, and then if someone also pointed out that some of the groups are getting pretty big, so we have some smaller groups with just 3 people in there. Don't worry about that. I mean, still be, you know, you're still going to get a lot out of the process. We have some larger groups grown to like 7 or 8 people, and we'll probably split those groups apart into groups of 3 or 4. But it's going to be hard for everybody to get the most out of a mastermind group and be respectful of everyone's time if the groups are over 6 people. So we'll be working with you guys to split the groups up, and you're welcome to ping Mary or I, and we'll work with you to make that happen. If you ping me, I may delegate it to Mary, who's just being an absolute rock star helping you with all this. So I hope that answers those. Okay, Google Hangouts. What we'll do on Google Hangouts, so the pro level folks, I will use Google Hangouts for the masterminds that I facilitate, and you're welcome to use whatever format you want to. I know some people have access to conference call lines. I know some people, you know, have used different. There's Zoom is a meeting application that is nice. You might want to use something like GoToWebinar, like I use for these. But Google Hangouts is what I use. And Kristen, I will be working with everyone to make sure that you have access to my Google Hangouts profile before our first meeting, and then I will basically call you on Google Hangouts. So we'll work together on that. Okay, to message your entire group on Slack, you'll go to your private group. So Meggie, I don't think you're in the private group just yet, but you'll just type @group. And when you type @group, it should ping everyone in the group. Or you can just tag in the group at the same time if you want to. Just tag @Bridget, @Meggie, @Natasha. I do recommend on Slack using your first name. It really is a lot like hanging out at a workplace with somebody, or hanging out in an office, or a co-op type office space kind of thing. So, you know, some of you have put your business names and stuff in there. I would really encourage you to just be your first name, just be @Whitney or @Meggie or whatever, because it's very interactive. Okay, so that's Slack, and keep asking questions. These are great questions. So let me give you a brief overview of the process. Basically, every meeting is going to consist of, number one, an update from all the members. Number two, an issue from each member. Number three, questions that are going to be asked to each member. So you guys are going to come up with questions to ask each other, and I'm going to dive into this more in depth in a second. And then fourth is feedback that you're going to give each member. And so those are the four basic elements of the process. The rules for the process would be just be present, show up on time, put your phones away, put your phones on silent, turn them over, don't be distracted by text messages and things like that. And then the third rule is follow the format. This format works, and I've been in a live mastermind group with women for over 10 years, and it really, really works. So let me dive into explaining that. So Natasha and Maggie, if you guys just hopped onto Slack maybe in the past 2 hours, Mary's been at a photo shoot, and I haven't had a chance to go in and add you guys to your group. So I'll do that. Once you accept the invite, we have to add you to your private group, so you won't be able to see them until we add you. Okay, let me get back to my notes. Okay, so here's what a meeting will look like. And we're going to assume that this meeting has 5, which is probably going to be the maximum, maybe 6 would be the maximum number of members per group. So the meeting will start out with, well, one more thing before I dive into that. After your group has picked a meeting date and a meeting time, I would recommend that everybody introduce themselves. You can do this over Slack, or another suggestion is, if you're going to use Google Hangouts for a meeting, you could have a trial run meeting where you guys all just tried to hop on to Google Hangouts or whatever platform you're going to decide to use, and hop on there all at one time, and just introduce yourself, just to make sure that everybody's computer works with Google Hangouts or whatever format you're going to be using. Okay, so meeting format. Kristen, okay, Kristen, let me email you after this. Let me email you, because I should have sent you an invite. And so let me help you figure that out after the meeting's over. Okay, so meeting format. The first thing that I'm literally just going to walk you guys through this. So if you have questions, let me know. In a meeting, the first thing that's going to happen, you guys are all going to hop on the Google Hangouts or whatever platform you choose, and the facilitator is basically welcome everyone. And it sounds kind of formal, but the facilitator is going to say, okay, everybody, now it's time for us to get our meeting started. And then the first thing that the group is going to do is basically go around the circle, for lack of a better description, and spend 5 minutes giving an update. So hopefully by this point in time, you've already introduced yourself. People know your personal story, they know your professional story. And so really what you want to do is you kind of just want to give a personal update. This can be very brief, definitely no more than 5 minutes. And this is where the facilitator, if somebody starts to get long-winded, the facilitator just kind of needs to say, in love, we gotta move on to the next person. It's important to stay on track, because if you don't, these meetings could get really long, and we want to respect everyone's time. So if there are 5 people giving 5 minutes worth of updates, that's going to be 25 minutes. And everyone is also going to need an opportunity to talk about their business and where they are. So if you guys as a group feel like you can shorten your updates, that's great. I've been in mastermind groups where we simply use a 1-word description. And so it's the briefest kind of update you can give, that everybody goes around the circle and they just say 1 word about how they're feeling. So that's an option as well. But these are going to be your one of the points of doing this is to get your group to work together and start to use Slack and figure out how to work with the team and stuff like that. Okay, so then after you guys do the update, it is time for the round of issues. Deborah, I see your question. I'm going to keep moving forward just so I can get through the meeting format, and so don't get off track, but just wanted to acknowledge that. So this is the next step of the meeting is issues. So each member of the group will present an issue. Actually going to have a workbook that you will be able to print off and use for every meeting. So the facilitator will be able to use the workbook to help keep them on track, and there'll be little reminder notes and stuff in there for everybody. But what the first presenter will do, the first person has 20 minutes, and in that 20 minutes, they need to present their issue. So it could be, I can't decide what to do about my e-commerce shop or whatever. And it would really be best if they could present that issue in less than 5 minutes. It might be, an issue might be something that you're struggling with in the e-course. It might be you don't know what to do next. You don't know what to do in the area of marketing. You don't have a financial system in place, and you need advice on setting that up. But it could be broad. It could be a personal issue. It could be I'm struggling with feeling guilty that my kids are over here and I'm working. So it could be any type of issue at all. But hopefully no more than 5 minutes on that. And that person was the person who just presented the issue is now playing the role of presenter. And I'm going to describe that person in that role as the role of a presenter going forward. So then it's going to be the group's turn to ask the presenter clarifying questions. So the facilitator will say, Susie, we're going to start with you, and we're going to go around the circle, and each of us are going to ask the presenter any questions we have about her issue. Okay, so on clarifying questions, some of you may have lots of questions for the presenter. Some of you may have no questions for the presenter. But this is an opportunity for you to really seek to understand what the presenter's issue is going to be. And when it comes turn for you to be a presenter, you're really going to appreciate and value the questions that people have asked you. Because even though you're not getting feedback at this point, we'll get to feedback in a second, the clarifying questions really help the presenter start to understand how other people are looking at her issue or her problem. So I don't want anybody to feel intimidated to ask clarifying questions. It's really important as a group to be respectful of everyone's questions. I've been in meetings where I just have flat out had to say, I have no idea what you're talking about, and I need you to dial this way down for me. The other important thing to remember about the clarifying questions issue round is that you can't give feedback in this round. Feedback comes in the next round. So hopefully clarifying questions would take no more than 7 minutes to go around a circle and ask questions. You're going to be coming up with these questions in your mind as you were listening to the presenter present the issue that they want to discuss. And as you ask questions, it might be tempting to say, well, Hannah, let's just pretend our presenter's name is Hannah. I really think that you should do X, Y, or Z. And you can't do that in the clarifying questions round. And part of that is because sometimes you'll get through the round of clarifying questions and your feedback will have changed because of the questions that the other people in the group are asking. That clarifying questions round is going to be a high value educational time for you guys. And you're going to learn a lot just by listening to other people's questions that they ask the presenter. So after the round is done, the facilitator will say, fabulous, it's time for feedback. And you'll start back at the beginning of the circle, and Susie will tell Hannah, if I was in your shoes, this is what I think I'd do, or I'd look at your different types, feedback can include different types of resources that you might want to recommend to people, different experiences that you've had. You may not feel like you have much feedback, but just a word of encouragement can go a really long way to helping somebody get to the next place where they need to be in business. The hard part about feedback, and this, sometimes the issue is very difficult, and the presenter starts to feel a little bit defensive. I've been there. As a presenter, when someone comes at you and starts telling you how to run your business, and you don't feel like they really understand, they haven't asked good clarifying questions, you don't really feel like they understand where you're coming from. Sometimes as a presenter, it's hard not to be defensive. But this is where the role of the facilitator can come in, because during the round of feedback, the presenter is not allowed to talk. So if you are being the presenter, if you're the presenter and someone has given you feedback that you just don't feel like it gels with you, it doesn't matter. You really can't say anything. You just have to take the feedback, write it down in your notes, and move on to being present and being there for the next person. So when that issue is presented and everyone has asked their clarifying questions of the presenter and given their feedback to the presenter, the facilitator will then say, thank you. The presenter can then have a brief moment to kind of summarize or say thank you for all that feedback, and maybe say something along the lines, a little bit of something learned, but it's not a time to rehash the issue. And then the facilitator needs to turn to the next person and have them present their issue and go through that process again. So each person will that whole process of presenting the issue, being asked clarifying questions, and receiving feedback take about 20 minutes per person. And again, you'll have a workbook for you for each meeting that will help you stay on track. When it comes time for the facilitator to present their issue, they need to actually hand the role of facilitator over to someone else and delegate that, and ask that person to play the role of facilitator when it's their turn to present. And that's an important gesture, just because it's really easy for these meetings to get out of control. I was actually in a meeting about 6 months ago, and the facilitator, who's a dear friend of mine, said, "We're not going to use the format in this meeting." And it was total chaos. And she was like, "I'll never do that again." So trust the format. It really does work. At the end of the meeting, when the last person has presented, and hopefully a goal would be for each meeting to not last more than 2 hours. It'll really start flying though, if you guys honor the clock and really, take the time to be present for each other. It won't feel like it's 2 hours. It'll feel really brief. At the end of that meeting, the facilitator should ask the group for one thing that everyone learned. And so you'll go around the circle one final time, and you'll say something that you all learned. And this is a really good thing as well, because you start to grow with other people at the same time, and what they learn becomes something that you learn, and light bulbs can just keep firing. It's really awesome. And then the facilitator will close the meeting out by reminding the members of the group what time the next meeting is. And so that's pretty much the whole process in a nutshell. The other thing that happens is after you guys have done this for each other for 3 meetings, you're going to know each other really well. So at first, everybody's doing the whole, here's what I do, and here's my family situation, and here's the personal side, the professional side, and but at the end of 3 meetings, you're going to have a really clear understanding not only of your business, but of how different people's businesses run. So again, I highly encourage you to be there and be present for people, because this is a huge value, guys. Okay, let me look back at the chat and see if I can answer any questions. Okay, Lindsay says, when does the presenter answer the questions? Okay, great. During the round of clarifying questions, the presenter is allowed to talk and is allowed to answer the questions. It's when you get to the feedback round that the presenter is supposed to just take the feedback and not respond, because that gets you off track. So hopefully that helps. Jennifer, yes, your group, you're supposed to work with your group to set dates for the meetings. When you get the workbook, it will have, basically it's going to be one workbook that will walk you guys through 3 meetings. And so one of the first in the workbook is going to have a spot for you to write your group members' names, your group members' email addresses, and the meeting times that you guys have agreed upon as a group. Point is for you guys to work together to set those meeting times. And then in case you missed it earlier, definitely let Mary and I know via Slack what those meeting times are, so that if we need to rearrange people in groups, we can. And that's another thing. If your schedule is just not gelling with the time that your group has set, we can let Mary know, and we'll work with another group to get you in there that works with your schedule. Deborah, where and when do we decide what format we are going to use as a group? I highly recommend hopping over to Slack and having that conversation with your group there. Slack really isn't something that you have to log in and out of. You can be on there all day. In fact, I've been on there enough me today, and I've been able to interact with you guys. Complete note caveat there: I am not always on my computer during the day. It's actually rare for me to be on my computer during the day. But Slack is also an app on your phone, so it's on your phone. But I'm pretty disciplined about my work hours, so sometimes when I turn them off, I turn them off. But Deborah, one other thing is I'm the groups that I'm going to lead with the pro members, I'm going to use Google Hangouts, and I recommend that as sort of a default thing. If you do use Google Hangouts, people who haven't used Google Hangouts before you probably need to do that. We have everybody to log on and make sure their computers all work correctly, because sometimes you have to download a widget or a plugin or something. Google walks you through it, but just FYI. Natasha, will I provide a write-up of this format? Yes, you'll get a workbook, and it's basically it's going to be pretty much foolproof. I'm trying to make it as foolproof as possible. But believe it or not, after you get into one round of this, in your first meeting, and it's going to totally make sense, and it'll click. You won't forget it. Sarah, we're recommending that you guys do 3 meetings. You can do them every other week. You can do them. You can squeeze them in during the course. You can stretch them out and do them over the course of the summer. We'll have Slack. We'll keep Slack up and running, hopefully until everybody's done all their meetings. I would recommend not. We will close the Slack account at some point, but I would recommend. Let me look at a calendar. Let's just put a date on this to give us some structure. I would say get your 3 meetings done by the end of August. By let's say August 28th is a Friday. So I would recommend. I know people have travel schedules and things like that. And if you guys decide you want to do more than 3 meetings, if you get into it and you're like, this is great, let's keep going. Do that. We are offering this Mastermind program as sort of an add-on for people who've taken the course, and so we definitely have been as organized as possible and trying to feel our way through and setting it up this time. We've already learned a lot, and so we'll have to do the same thing on that if it becomes a continuous offering. But so that's still up in the air. Okay, question from Lindsay. What if we have more than one issue? Are we allowed to cover more than one? I love it, because I've got 18 issues, at any given time of the day. That's always the joke about issues. Lindsay, I would highly recommend sticking one. I know it can be really hard. That's what Slack is there for as well. You can talk to your group and say, I'm really struggling with this. Does anybody have any feedback? Another thing that you can do with Slack is chat. I mean, it literally can just work like a Skype chat in the background. You have these private groups. So sometimes and whenever we were launching the course, I had a team that was helping me do that. We were on Slack at midnight and 1 a.m., just kind of talking back and forth, kind of casually. So it can be, you guys might even want to set up like evening chats, like touch base at this point in time kind of thing. Like every Thursday night, let's all hop on there at 8 o'clock and talk about what we learned in this module this week or something like that. But during the actual meetings themselves, I would recommend picking your biggest issue and focusing on that. Kimberly, I would actually recommend starting them now. You guys have, we're at module 2, and we've hit the stuff on foundation that's so important about understanding who you are. In module 2, the archetype are really sort of an at-a-glance worksheet, or not worksheet, but grid diagram for helping you understand different types of business models that are out there, which is going to help strengthen your understanding of any type of business out there. So I would recommend diving in, and you're going to get to know each other. It's going to be a really engaging activity. So I would recommend starting them right away, or as soon as you guys, get your date settled. Any more questions? I've covered all my notes, and I'll have a worksheet packet for you guys here in the next couple of days. And I feel like I was actually really organized about going through that process. But yeah, before we go, any more questions? How long will new people be added to the groups? Well, really, we're going to try to put no more than 6 people in a group. So it can't go on too much longer. If we don't hear from people in the next couple of days, we won't ask somebody new to your group in 2 weeks. We'll work with them to get a new group started if we start to hear from people like that. But great question. Okay, does anyone, I think that's everything. If you haven't, I guess I'll say for the recording, if anybody's listening to this, if you haven't signed up for a group, email hello@wittenenglish.com, email Mary, and we'll get you signed up. We need to know your time zone and morning, afternoon, or evening into a group. If you have any problems with scheduling in your group, email us and we'll get you set up. And then we will get you a Slack invite. If you have not received a Slack invite, email hello@wittenenglish.com, and Mary will send you a Slack invite and get you set up into your private group on Slack as well. So that's kind of the summary of what we need you guys to do. Pro members, you'll hear from me on this. I'll be on Slack with you guys as well. And Plus members, if you guys have questions, Mary is definitely the one who's been coordinating all this, and I'm involved making sure it all goes well, because this is the first time we've used Slack, but so far it's going really well. So I think we're on our way. Yes, we can resend the Slack invite to anyone. So if there's someone in your group that is not signed up yet, or isn't on Slack yet, you could reach out to them. If you've got their email address, most of you got a group email at the beginning. And then we switched to having conversation on Slack. So if you have not received a Slack invite, we need to resend it to you for sure. Bridget has 11 people. Bridget, I don't think we have you in your final group yet. So who do I need to put in a group? Maggie, Natasha, Bridget, you guys need to be added to your private groups, I think. Okay. So I'll do that right now after we get off the web in there. And Kristen, we will get you resent. Yeah, we will do all that. Okay, I'm going to hit stop on the recording. So to those of you who are listening to the recording, thank you so much. And then to anyone else who needs any help, I'll stay on the webinar and I'll get you guys set up in Slack right now.